Before wealth reaches your hands, it flows or fails to flow through your body. Not through your words or even your effort, but through unconscious gestures. The way your fingers rub your forehead when you're tense, the way your shoulders curl inward in moments of doubt, or how you fidget with your face just before you speak about money. These aren't harmless habits. They are signals sent directly to the energetic field around you. In classical feng shui, we talk a lot about qi gates in a house, the front door, windows, pathways. But your body has qi gates too. Your palms, your forehead, your abdomen, your feet, each one a portal that either holds or leaks life force. What many people don't realize is that these unconscious movements, these little habits that we carry, can create subtle energy disruptions that block wealth from taking root in our lives. This isn't a superstition, it's a form of energetic hygiene. Think of it this way: you wouldn't walk barefoot through a muddy street and then lie down in bed without cleaning your feet. But that's exactly what many people do energetically, dragging the weight of stress, scarcity, and self-doubt across their energetic field every single day. In today's video, we're going to explore 7 of the most common body-based habits that unconsciously push wealth away. I'll show you how to recognize them, how to shift them, and how to align your posture and presence with energy that welcomes, not repels, abundance. And along the way, you'll hear about how a famous billionaire uses stillness and posture as invisible tools for wealth preservation. Before we begin, I invite you to help this message reach more people who may be unconsciously limiting their potential. If this video opens your eyes or your energy, please give it a like, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. Your support brings us closer to our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers and allows us to keep sharing these grounded, transformative practices with clarity and care. Now, let's begin. Because your body is already speaking, the question is it aligned with the wealth you seek or working quietly against it? The 5 body habits that block wealth. A. Constant touching of the forehead. Blocked intuition is financial mistakes. In classical energy theory, both from feng shui and traditional Eastern physiology, the space between the eyebrows, often referred to as the third eye in other traditions, is far more than a spiritual concept. It functions as the energetic command center for intuition, perception, and visionary alignment. This zone holds a special place not only in meditative cultures, but also in metaphysical architecture. It is where insight is born and refined, where our awareness, direction, and ability to discern opportunity are energetically seated. But here's the hidden reality most people never consider: our habits, especially physical ones, either sharpen or dull the functions of this internal compass. One of the most underestimated but commonly practiced habits is the compulsive touching, rubbing, or pressing of the forehead, particularly between the brows. At first glance, it may seem innocent, a subconscious gesture of stress, a reflex during deep thought, or an attempt to self-soothe during emotional overwhelm. But when viewed through the lens of energy flow and feng shui symbolism, the implications are far deeper. Just as a home's main door is considered the mouth of qi through which energy enters and circulates, the human forehead, especially the area known as yin-ting in Chinese acupuncture, is the gateway to internal clarity. When this zone is clouded with friction, pressure, or frequent interruption, we muddy the very stream that was designed to guide us. Imagine a mirror placed directly in front of a blank wall. Though the mirror may be clean, its reflection offers nothing. This is the energetic equivalent of chronically pressing on your forehead. You block light, but more importantly, you remove direction. This repeated compression sends a subtle but consistent signal to your inner navigation system. Pause your clarity, delay your insight, distrust what you feel. From a behavioral standpoint, touching the forehead during moments of uncertainty creates a neurological link between indecision and physical disruption. Over time, this builds a feedback loop in which each new moment of doubt is met not with breath or stillness, but with pressure, friction, or distraction. The intuitive mechanism becomes blurred, and decision-making, especially in finances, suffers. Many people who constantly fumble with investments, make reactive financial choices, or feel chronically blocked in career movement often carry this very pattern. They don't just feel stuck, they perform stuckness with their bodies. The problem compounds when these gestures are rehearsed in professional or high-stakes environments. For instance, someone about to walk into a negotiation who repeatedly rubs their forehead is not only leaking energy, they are projecting uncertainty. This nonverbal broadcast affects how others perceive them, altering the dynamic before a single word is spoken. Let's consider an example. Years ago, during a feng shui consultation with a successful but frustrated executive in Singapore, I noticed a pattern. Every time he spoke about expanding his company, he'd place his hands squarely on his forehead and close his eyes. He described feeling foggy when signing off on decisions, despite having ample data and support. His personal office was aligned and energetically clean, but his body wasn't. I guided him through a 14-day awareness practice. No touching of the forehead during meetings or when thinking about money. Instead, he was to rest his palms together, breathe deeply, and blink intentionally. Not only did his clarity return, but his ability to delegate improved, and within 2 months, a stalled merger moved forward. The only thing that changed was his pattern of physical response, and that changed everything. From a feng shui perspective, what you repeatedly touch becomes energetically inscribed. Touching the forehead under stress links the act of stress to the very center meant for foresight. This connection weakens the mirror of awareness. In environments where wealth energy is cultivated, whether it's a home, a bank, or a business, the clarity of mental space mirrors the structure of external flow. This is why ancient calligraphers would never begin work without first cleansing their hands and centering their breath. What they wrote reflected not just ink, but inner order. Likewise, the way we handle our most central energy points determines whether we navigate wealth like artisans or like amateurs fumbling in the dark. Instead of mindlessly pressing the zone, practice stillness. When you feel the urge to rub your forehead in moments of tension, pause and blink slowly 3 times. This simple action is more than a reset. It's an energetic clearing. Your eyelids are natural sweepers of perceptual qi. Blinking slowly restores rhythm, presence, and invites fresh interpretation without brute force. This is similar to opening a window instead of wiping a fogged mirror. It allows energy to move without applying unnecessary pressure. Another method is to apply a warm, damp cloth infused with a few drops of lemongrass or sandalwood oil to the forehead in the morning. This signals the body to awaken the perception center while calming the mind. For those who work in high-pressure environments, placing a jade bead or a natural stone near your monitor, positioned slightly above eye levels, can energetically draw your gaze upward throughout the day, recentering your awareness without conscious effort. It's important to note that the forehead's energetic role isn't just spiritual, it's financial. It governs anticipation, discernment, and the ability to see through illusion. In feng shui, wealth doesn't come to those who chase, it comes to those who are prepared. And preparation is only possible when perception is clean. Touching the forehead during stress is like stirring muddy water and then expecting to find gold at the bottom. Instead, let the silt settle. Let the vision return through stillness. Let's briefly compare this with how some of the most composed, high-performing individuals present themselves. Think of leaders like Jeff Bezos or Angela Merkel. Regardless of your opinion of their politics or power, notice how rarely they touch their faces in public. Their composure is not just about discipline, it's a nonverbal mastery of energetic self-containment. Their posture and restraint are part of their energetic profile, projecting confidence, command, and decisiveness. The forehead in their presence remains clear, not clouded by fingers, doubt, or physical agitation. In summary, the forehead represents more than a stress point. It is your energetic window to wealth-aligned vision. When treated with respect, it becomes a beacon. When overused, it becomes a blur. Like every gateway in feng shui, its effectiveness depends not on its ornamentation, but on its clarity. Begin to treat your forehead as a sacred space. Do not block it with unnecessary touch. Do not dim it with the weight of confusion. Let it shine with the stillness that invites truth, and in doing so, allow your financial path to unfold with the precision and grace it deserves. B. Rubbing the lower abdomen, disturbing the vault of stability. In the landscape of the human energetic system, few areas are as misunderstood or quietly overlooked as the lower abdomen, what traditional Chinese metaphysics calls the dantian. This center, located roughly 2 finger widths below the navel and nestled deep inside the lower belly, is considered the body's original energy vault. In feng shui terms, it's like the earth element at the heart of a space, a stabilizing weight that anchors everything else in place. But more than just a physical core, the dantian represents groundedness, continuity in one's capacity to hold and protect both energy and wealth. And yet, despite its powerful role, many of us treat this area with disregard. We poke at it, rub it anxiously during moments of uncertainty, or unconsciously contract it when faced with decisions that challenge our security. In doing so, we aren't just soothing ourselves, we're disturbing the very storehouse that's meant to keep us steady. Imagine for a moment a beautifully carved treasure chest filled with gold coins, resting quietly in a storm-safe chamber. The room is silent, still, protected from the wind. But suddenly, in the midst of worry, you start to shake that chest violently. The coins clatter, scatter, tumble across the floor. Not one is lost, but the order is gone. The piece is broken. That's what it looks like energetically when you rub or press your lower abdomen in states of stress. You activate a zone that is meant to be held, not stirred. You agitate a pool that gains its power from calm. Many people engage in this behavior without even realizing it. They're seated at a desk faced with a difficult email or unexpected expense, and without thought, their hand slides down to press or clutch their belly. Others may do it while watching financial news, signing paperwork, or even arguing about money. The motion itself might seem harmless, but the implications are vast. Because just as a river holds momentum only when its bed is settled, your ability to make strong, wealth-aligned choices depends on the stillness of this central core. The dantian is not a metaphor, it's a function. In traditional energy arts, it's seen as the original battery of the human body. When babies breathe, their lower abdomen rises and falls naturally. This is the body's way of preserving and replenishing life force. As we grow older and face stress, fear, and disconnection, we begin to pull our breath upward, into the chest, into the shoulders, away from the earth. And with that shift, we lose our grounding. When financial uncertainty enters the equation, this disconnection becomes even more pronounced. People begin living above the waist, thinking, analyzing, reacting, but no longer feeling rooted. That's when rubbing the lower abdomen becomes a nervous tick, a subtle cry for help, a physical manifestation of internal chaos. But there is another way, and it begins not with control, but with conscious contact. Instead of rubbing or agitating the dantian during emotional peaks, we can place both palms gently over this area with awareness. No movement, no pressing, just presence. This simple act of touching your own energetic vault with calm instead of fear sends a profound message to your system. I am safe, I am steady, I am not chasing or losing anything. I am rooted. And in that moment, you invite your wealth energy to return, because wealth, like breath, flows best when there is space and security. Think of how a well-managed vault in any bank operates. It isn't opened carelessly, it isn't jostled by emotion, it isn't treated like a tea. It is entered with intent, order, and dignity. Your Dantian deserves the same. Whether you're in the midst of a high-stakes financial conversation or standing in line at the store worried about what's in your account, the way you interact with your lower abdomen can either disturb or deepen your energetic stability. The solution, however, is not to freeze the body or shame the gesture. It's to introduce intentional alternatives, movements, and rituals that restore flow without creating leaks. One of the simplest yet most effective practices is to perform slow circular head rolls in the morning and evening. Not the jerky, inattentive kind done out of impatience, but deep, smooth arcs that draw awareness to the base of the skull and the weight of the head. This is not about stretching. It is about inviting chi to circulate without disruption. The moment your head becomes heavy with thoughts, instead of pressing or touching the neck, lift your chin slightly, relax the repel, and breathe down the spine. This tells the body, I am upright, I am steady, I am not escaping, I am returning. For those sensitive to environmental influence or who work in emotionally charged spaces, keeping the back of the neck warm is another form of energetic insurance. Scarves, high-collared shirts, or even the placement of your desk in a way that shields your back can make a difference. In feng shui design, it is always advised that one's seat, not just in the home but in life, be backed by a mountain. Whether in the form of a wall, a solid headboard, or a structured tree line, the human body is no different. A neck exposed to draft, chaos, or constant self-touch becomes like a desk without support. Easily shifted, easily destabilized. There is also symbolic meaning in preserving the sanctity of this zone. In traditional warrior disciplines, the back of the neck was considered a sacred point of vulnerability. It was not touched casually, nor exposed unnecessarily. To guard it was not paranoia, it was wisdom. Because whatever enters from behind bypasses the conscious mind. It goes straight into the field. That's why when someone taps you on the back of the neck unexpectedly, it feels invasive, even if unintentional. It is a breach of unseen space. And when you are the one touching that space carelessly, you're essentially breaching your own clarity, interrupting the dialogue between insight and action. Let's reflect on a modern example that illustrates this concept well. During the 1990s, Steve Jobs became known for his exacting attention to detail, not just in product design, but in personal habits. According to several biographies, he was particularly conscious of posture and physical alignment during high-level meetings. Observers noted that he rarely touched his neck or fidgeted during discussions, even in tense moments. He reportedly favored turtlenecks not just as fashion, but as subtle armor, shielding this sensitive zone while projecting continuity. Whether or not he practiced energy arts formally, his behavior aligned with their principles. Reduce energy leaks, increase focus, preserve clarity. And clarity, after all, is the true currency of leadership, wealth, and personal power. You cannot receive what you're not ready to hold, and you cannot hold it if your field is draining from the back. That is why I urge you gently but firmly to begin respecting the back of your neck as more than anatomy. It is your energetic back door. Leave it open and you invite interference. Tend to it with warmth and presence, and you seal your field in strength. From today onward, notice when your hand travels to that space. Is it fatigue? Is it indecision? Is it a search for grounding? In that moment, lower your hand. Sit tall, roll your shoulders back, Feel your neck align over your spine like a mountain rising from the earth. There is no need to escape tension by pressing it. Meet it upright, meet it anchored, because that's how energy listens. C. Touching the back of the neck, the energetic back door. Among the subtle habits that shape our energy field, few are as underestimated as the unconscious act of reaching for the back of the neck. Perhaps it's a casual rub after a long day, a scratch beneath the collar when tensions rise, or a habitual cradle of the skull during moments of decision fatigue. But within classical energy traditions, especially those that underpin feng shui principles, this movement is far from meaningless. It is in fact a message, a signal from the body to the environment that the energetic gate of clarity is being disturbed. The area at the back of the neck, particularly where the spine meets the base of the skull, holds one of the most sensitive and energetically pivotal points in the human field. In traditional Chinese understanding, this spot is known as Feng Fu, or the Wind Mansion. It is not just a poetic name, it reflects the belief that this space governs how external energy flows into the brain and affects the nervous system. Just as a home has both an inviting front door and a vulnerable back exit, your body possesses energy gates that receive and release. The Feng Fu point is the body's back door, an unseen portal where energy can leave just as easily as it enters. When a person repeatedly touches or presses this area, especially during moments of fatigue, fear, or financial stress, it is akin to leaving a door ajar during a storm. Wind comes in, clarity goes out, and the internal sense of direction slowly erodes. This isn't metaphorical, it's energetic mechanics. The back of the neck is a channel. When you scratch it out of habit, rub it during uncertainty, or expose it to cold or chaotic energy, you weaken the boundary that holds your focus intact. Over time, the result is not always dramatic. It is not a sudden collapse of energy, but a slow leak, the kind that causes foggy thinking, interrupted sleep, scattered attention, and more consequentially, misaligned decisions. Think of your life like a boat. The mind is the compass, the breath the sail, and the Feng Fu point is the rudder. A well-protected rudder keeps you steady in direction, even through rough waters. But if the rudder is tampered with, if it's left exposed, touched too often, or stiffened by cold, the entire vessel begins to veer. You don't notice it at first. The stars still shine, the horizon still seems near, but with every passing hour, the deviation increases. Eventually, you end up off course. This is what happens when we allow the back of our neck to become a site of energy disarray. Now let's tie this to something practical. In daily life, especially for those in high pressure or high decision environments, touching the back of the neck often becomes a default gesture. Executives do it during presentations. Creatives do it when brainstorming feels blocked. Students do it when faced with deadlines. What all these moments have in common is not just mental strain, but directional loss. The mind is reaching backward, trying to ground itself, but instead it unplugs its own clarity. This physical movement becomes a loop, reinforcing the very tension it's trying to soothe. The solution, however, is not to freeze the body or shame the gesture. It's to introduce intentional alternatives, movements and rituals that restore flow without creating leaks. One of the simplest yet most effective practices is to perform slow, circular head rolls in the morning and evening. Not the jerky and attentive kind done out of impatience, but deep, smooth arcs that draw awareness to the base of the skull and the weight of the head. This is not about stretching. It is about inviting qi to circulate without disruption. The moment your head becomes heavy with thoughts, instead of pressing or touching the neck, lift your chin slightly, relax the brain, and breathe down the spine. This tells the body, I am upright, I am steady, I am not escaping, I am returning. For those sensitive to environmental influence or who work in emotionally charged spaces, keeping the back of the neck warm is another form of energetic insurance. Scarves, high-collared shirts, or even the placement of your desk in a way that shields your back can make a difference. In feng shui design, it is always advised that one's seat, not just in the home but in life, be backed by a mountain, whether in the form of a wall, a solid headboard, or a structured tree line. The human body is no different. A neck exposed to draft, chaos, or constant self-touch becomes like a desk without support, easily shifted, easily destabilized. There is also symbolic meaning in preserving the sanctity of this zone. In traditional warrior disciplines, the back of the neck was considered a sacred point of vulnerability. It was not touched casually, nor exposed unnecessarily. To guard it was not paranoia, it was wisdom, because whatever enters from behind bypasses the conscious mind. It goes straight into the field. That's why when someone taps you on the back of the neck unexpectedly, it feels invasive, even if unintentional. It is a breach of unseen space. And when you are the one touching that space carelessly, you're essentially breaching your own clarity, interrupting the dialogue between insight and action. Let's reflect on a modern example that illustrates this concept well. During the 1990s, Steve Jobs became known for his exacting attention to detail, not just in product design, but in personal habits. According to several biographies, he was particularly conscious of posture and physical alignment during high-level meetings. Observers noted that he rarely touched his neck or fidgeted during discussions, even in tense moments. He reportedly favored turtlenecks not just as fashion, but as subtle armor, shielding the sensitive zone while projecting continuity. Whether or not he practiced energy arts formally, his behavior aligned with their principles: reduce energy leaks, increase focus, preserve clarity. And clarity, after all, is the true currency of leadership, wealth, and personal power. You cannot receive what you're not ready to hold, and you cannot hold it if your field is draining from the back. That is why I urge you, gently but firmly, to begin respecting the back of your neck as more than anatomy. It is your energetic back door. Leave it open and you invite interference. Tend to it with warmth and presence, and you seal your field in strength. From today onward, notice when your hand travels to that space. Is it fatigue? Is it indecision? Is it a search for grounding? In that moment, lower your hand, sit tall, roll your shoulders back. Feel your neck align over your spine like a mountain rising from the earth. There is no need to escape tension by pressing it. Meet it upright, meet it anchored, because that's how energy listens. D. Fidgeting with the nose, scrambling the financial radar. Of all the small gestures we make without thinking, fidgeting with the nose might seem the most harmless, perhaps even humorous at times. But in the quiet language of energy, especially through the lens of classical feng shui and traditional Chinese face reading, this seemingly minor habit reveals far more than surface-level restlessness. It disturbs the very center of what is known in physiognomy as the money palace, the central zone of the face that governs clarity and decision-making, personal magnetism, and one's energetic ability to receive and manage wealth. To understand this fully, we need to look not only at the physical shape of the nose, but at its symbolic and energetic position on the human body. In face reading, the nose represents your relationship to prosperity, not the chase for money, but the capacity to attract, retain, and respect it. A strong, steady nose is traditionally seen as a sign of financial resilience. A symmetrical, well-shaped bridge implies good judgment and natural authority. The tip of the nose, called the wealth bulb, is believed to hold one's financial potential. So when this area is fidgeted with, scratched, pressed, pinched, or even subtly brushed during important conversations, the underlying message is one of scrambled energy. It's as if the radar meant to detect incoming wealth is momentarily thrown off frequency. The body says, I'm not sure, I'm distracted, I may not trust this. This doesn't mean everyone who touches their nose is destined for poverty. But in energetic terms, repeated contact with this area, especially during decision-making or moments of negotiation, creates subtle confusion in the energy field. Think of it like tapping the screen of a GPS system right before a turn. It may recalculate unnecessarily or stall the direction you were meant to follow. Financial clarity is more than logic. It's alignment between the inner and outer worlds. It's being able to recognize which opportunities resonate, which paths are worth taking, and when to wait. If the very center of your face, the anchor of this recognition, is constantly being tampered with, those intuitive signals become harder to hear. Let's ground this in modern behavior. Consider how people act during interviews, presentations, or contract signings. Watch closely and you'll notice the small cues. A brush of the nose during a question, a subtle rub after hearing a price, a scratch just before responding. These are energetic tells, not unlike poker gestures. They reveal the inner static, hesitation, discomfort, mental negotiation. And while others may not consciously notice, on a deeper level they feel it. Energy never lies. That's why some people, even when saying all the right things, still leave a sense of misalignment in the room. Their words point north, but their fingers, eyes, or posture point elsewhere. The nose, being central, amplifies this contradiction. Now imagine the inverse. A person sitting still, shoulders relaxed, face centered, hands resting quietly, and the nose untouched, open, receptive. That posture alone conveys confidence and clarity. The radar is clear. Wealth, opportunity, and even respect are drawn in, not because of force, but because of steadiness. There's a calm gravitational pull around people who don't need to fidget to feel safe. Their bodies communicate what their voices have yet to say. I'm aligned, I'm present, I'm listening. To bring this into daily life, begin by observing, not correcting, but noticing. When do you reach for your nose? Is it in conversations about money? Is it when you feel seen? Is it when you sense judgment? Or when you're unsure of your value? Every gesture carries a pattern, and patterns, once seen clearly, can be shifted. One effective technique is substitution. If you feel the urge to touch your nose during important exchanges, redirect your hands. Interlace your fingers lightly in your lap, or rest one palm over your lower abdomen. These placements ground energy rather than scatter it. Alternatively, hold a pen or smooth stone between your fingers. This gives the body a point of contact without interrupting the financial radar. From an environmental perspective, mirrors can be powerful tools, not for vanity, but for awareness. Sit in front of a mirror and role-play a conversation about asking for a raise, closing a sale, or making a financial request. Notice your gestures. Does your hand drift toward your face when stakes rise? Does your expression shift when the topic of value or worth comes up? Train yourself to hold presence without disruption. This isn't performance, it's energetic hygiene. Let's pause here for a well-known real-world example. Oprah Winfrey, a woman whose public image is synonymous with wealth, generosity, and deep self-assurance, is often studied for her body language during interviews. What's notable is her stillness. Her hands rarely rise above her shoulders during important conversations. Her facial energy remains open, particularly around the nose and mouth. This stillness doesn't make her passive, it gives her power. Audiences don't just listen to what she says, they feel how little energy she wastes. In a world of noise, her clarity becomes currency. Whether consciously or intuitively, she's mastered how to keep her radar tuned, and it shows. Of course, you don't have to be Oprah to practice this. The goal isn't to perform stillness for others, but to restore it within yourself. Financial alignment doesn't begin with spreadsheets or strategy. It begins with how you inhabit your face, how you protect your core, and how you allow energy to flow through you without interruption. The nose, being central, is a keystone. Guard it not with rigidity, but with reverence. A final note. In feng shui, when a space has too many sharp corners or clutter at the center, the entire layout suffers. The qi becomes agitated. Rooms feel smaller, less breathable. Similarly, when your body's center, your facial core, is disrupted by habitual fidgeting, your aura shrinks. People respond differently. Meetings feel off. agreements fall through, not because of words, but because of static. Clear the static. Stop tapping the radar. Let it work. And so, the next time your fingers wander toward your nose during a moment of discomfort, pause. Take a gentle breath. Re-anchor yourself through your seat, through your spine, through the quiet dignity of not needing to react. Let your presence do the listening. Let your energy stay whole. Collapsing the chest. Blocking the flow forward. There's a posture we see often on subway benches, in waiting rooms, across office chairs, and increasingly in front of screens. Shoulders curled slightly forward, spine disengaged, chest dropped inward as if trying to shrink its presence in the room. It might seem like simple fatigue, a resting habit, or the body's response to long hours at a desk. But from the lens of energy flow, and particularly through the wisdom encoded in Feng Shui and traditional metaphysical anatomy, this posture is not passive. It is a message, a signal, and more often than not, a quiet blockade against forward motion. To collapse the chest is to stifle yang energy. And yang, as you may know, is the vital, assertive, projective force that propels intentions into reality. It is the breath of effort, the warmth of confidence, and the pulse behind manifestation. When your chest caves inward, whether subtly or severely, you are physically closing the gateway through which your own aspirations move. You are shielding the heart, yes, but you are also damming the river that carries your voice, your vision, and your financial energy outward into the world. In Feng Shui, one of the core principles is that form dictates flow. The way a structure is shaped determines how energy moves through it. A narrow hallway chokes qi, a cluttered entryway disrupts welcome, a sloped ceiling over a bed leads to unsettled sleep. These are not dramatic superstitions. They are spatial truths, and the human body follows the same architectural laws. Your torso, specifically your chest, is the central atrium of your energetic house. It is where breath begins, where intention rises, and where presence is projected. If the chest is warm, open, and upright, it acts like a well-lit foyer, welcoming, radiant, and magnetic. But if the chest collapses, it becomes like a boarded-up storefront. What is seen is not potential but retreat. What is felt is not expansion, but withdrawal. Opportunities don't enter closed spaces, and wealth, like all forms of energy, seeks a place to land. A compressed chest sends the signal, not now, not ready, not safe. Physiologically, this posture restricts breathing. It reduces lung capacity, lowers oxygen flow, and places strain on the spine. Energetically, it dims your charisma, your personal magnetism. You speak softer, slower, and often with less clarity. And what's worse, you begin to internalize that signal. The body tells the mind, we're in hiding, and the mind agrees. Doubt grows, self-judgment increases. You stop applying for opportunities. You hold back during negotiations. You convince yourself that now isn't the right time, not because you aren't ready, but because your body posture has convinced your brain to believe it. And this becomes particularly visible when money is involved. The chest collapses when we feel guilt about spending, when we're afraid to ask for what we're worth, when we say it's okay after being underpaid or undervalued, when we pretend not to care about wealth as a way to hide our fear of not having enough. All these emotional scripts land in the same physical place, the heart space. And eventually that energy doesn't just change posture, it changes destiny. But here's the liberating truth. The body doesn't wait for permission to change. It simply responds to care. The moment you sit upright, roll your shoulders gently back and let your chest feel warm and unguarded, not puffed in ego, but open in courage, your energy field begins to recalibrate. The signal changes. You are no longer retreating. You are meeting life. You are saying, I am willing to receive. I am strong enough to stand in my own space. I am not hiding from opportunity. I am breathing into it. One powerful image I often use is the flute. Think of your collarbones as the open neck of a flute. When energy flows freely through it, it creates sound, beautiful, clear, directional. But if the flute is pinched, if the passage is compressed, the tone disappears. This is what collapsing the chest does to your life's music. It silences the melody of forward motion. A practical way to shift this is to begin your day with 5 breaths, deep, full, and centered in the heart. Not belly breaths, not forced exhalations, but gentle inhales that stretch the rib cage, lift the sternum slightly, and warm the space between the shoulder blades. As you breathe, imagine that each inhale is drawing possibility in, and each exhale is clearing doubt out. Do this before looking at your phone, before you check your bank account, before you speak to anyone. Let this be your morning alignment, like placing a welcome mat in front of your chest. Here I am, ready to meet the day. Another tool is to be aware of when you hunch. Pay attention in meetings, on calls, or during moments when tension arises. Use a gentle physical cue, a ring on your finger, a sticky note on your desk, a reminder tone to prompt a reset. Shoulders back, heart warm, chest open. Say nothing if you must, but breathe with presence. Over time, your body will relearn how to stand as your advocate, not your saboteur. I'd like to offer an example from a well-known figure whose posture speaks volumes, Michelle Obama. Watch any of her speeches or appearances, and you'll notice a recurring pattern. Shoulders anchored, chest lifted, voice grounded. Her presence doesn't need amplification. It arrives before she speaks, and this has nothing to do with politics. It's an energy practice. She holds space with her body. She leads with an open chest. And as a result, people listen, doors open, initiatives flourish. Her posture is not perfection, it is preparation. It says, I am here, I am worthy, I am aligned. You don't need a stage or spotlight to embody this. You only need a willingness to stand in your own doorway. Let your chest, not your resume, speak first. Let it say, I believe in my direction, I respect my worth, I hold space for prosperity to arrive. And if the chest feels tender, if fear still lingers, let that be okay. Meet it not with shame, but with breath. Each time you sit upright, each time you resist the impulse to curl in, each time you breathe through, rather than retreat from a challenge, you are rewriting your energetic pattern. You are practicing not just posture, but power. Let your chest be more than a container for breath. Let it be a vessel for direction. Let it guide you forward, not out of force, but out of alignment. Because when you hold your center with strength and softness, the world doesn't just see you, it responds to you. Story Spotlight. Warren Buffett's stillness. In a world obsessed with noise, motion, and overexertion, there's something profoundly magnetic about stillness. Not the stillness of hesitation, but the quiet assurance that comes from knowing your place, your value, and the rhythm of your own breath. Warren Buffett, arguably one of the most financially influential figures of our time, embodies this principle not just in his investment philosophy, but in his physical presence. For decades, the Oracle of Omaha has demonstrated that wealth doesn't require frenzy. In fact, it often avoids it. Watch any footage of Buffett in conversation, and a pattern emerges. He doesn't tap his feet, doesn't rub his hands, doesn't fiddle with pens or check his watch. He sinks into chairs like he belongs there. He listens more than he talks. And when he does speak, there's no rush, only clarity. This physical stillness is not accidental. It's a cultivated reflection of inner coherence. In the language of energy, Buffett's posture sends a signal: grounded, receptive, calm. It tells the room, and perhaps more importantly, his own nervous system, that he trusts the flow of time. He understands that fortune is not summoned through frantic gestures or rapid speech. It arrives in spaces of quiet discernment. And this is not just philosophy, it's energetic feng shui, embodied. Because when we hold our body in alignment, we become better stewards of the forces we invite into our lives. There's a parallel here with spatial design. In feng shui, a well-anchored chair placed in a position of command, back to the wall, full view of the door, invites clarity, control, and confidence. The person sitting in that chair becomes an anchor for the room. Now imagine translating that same design principle into your body. What if you became the command center, not by dominating the space, but by occupying it with ease? That's what Buffett does, and that's what anyone can begin to practice. Stillness is not a lack of motion. It is motion slowed down to meet awareness. It is a body that says, I do not chase, I attract, I do not clench, I receive, I do not rush, I resonate. And this has nothing to do with pretending to be someone you're not. It's about allowing your nervous system to settle enough that your presence does the work long before your words arrive. So here's the takeaway, as simple as it is profound. The body that fidgets tells the universe it is not yet ready. The body that stills becomes a magnet for what it truly wants. In that sense, wealth isn't about chasing outcomes. It's about tuning your vessel to hold the frequency of abundance. And Warren Buffett's physical behavior has been doing just that for decades. Without spectacle, without strain, just a quiet, steady rhythm that aligns presence with prosperity. Daily practices that attract Tui Hui. There's a quiet choreography available to all of us, not learned in grand temples or whispered by mystics, but accessible the moment we open our eyes each morning and close them each night. These are not rituals for ritual's sake, but acts of intentional energy alignment, deliberate touch points between body and the flow of fortune. They do not require incense or chanting or sacred tools. They require only presence and the willingness to meet the day and ourselves with care. The first begins in the hands. Upon waking, long before phones are checked or conversations begin, pause and bring your palms together. Rub them slowly, not hurriedly, not like washing, but like listening. Let the skin speak to the nerves and let the nerves speak to the field around you. In Chinese metaphysics, the center of the palm is known as Lao Gong, a point of transmission and reception. It is your interface with the world. When you warm this center, you awaken the energetic switchboards. Your body whispers, I am online, I am awake, I am ready. Just as you would sweep your doorstep to welcome a guest, this gesture cleans the gateway through which opportunities shake your hand. Hands that are activated in the morning are more than just functional. They are tuned to receive, to hold, to release without grasping. From the hands, attention shifts inward toward the chest. So often, fear nests in the heart without invitation, especially fear around money. We carry it like invisible bricks, the cost of a missed opportunity, the shame of a debt, the uncertainty of not knowing where the next source will come from. In these moments, and even in neutral times, bring your fingers gently to the center of your chest and tap. Lightly, rhythmically, like knocking on a door you already own. This is not about performance. It is about contact. The heart is more than a pump. It is an energetic magnet. It doesn't just beat, it broadcasts. When you tap here, you're reminded of its mission. Not to panic, but to align. Whisper a phrase if you feel called. I receive with confidence. I act with clarity. Say it like a truth already known, not a plea. In feng shui, the center of a house is left open and vibrant to allow qi to circulate. In the same way, your emotional core must stay engaged, not heavy. You are not stirring chaos, you are inviting coherence. As the day ends and you prepare to retreat into rest, there is one last gesture to seal the energy. Your feet, the foundation of your movement, the roots through which earthly chi is absorbed, deserve closing attention. Cold feet, metaphorically and physically, signal instability. Warmth here is not comfort, it is grounding. Take a warm cloth infused with ginger water or simply heat it in your palms and press gently against the soles, especially around the ball of the foot where the K1 point lies, known as Yang Quan or the gushing spring. This is where your vitality meets the world. By warming it, you do not just soothe the day's exhaustion. You retain your wealth chi. You tell the body, you are held, you are complete. Nothing needs to leak while you sleep. In Feng Shui, wealth is not merely invited in, it is held, preserved, honored. Your feet are vessels. Keep them warm. Let your dreams rise from solid ground. And finally, the eyes, not just for sight, but for vision. Before a meeting, a difficult decision, or a new undertaking, close them not to shut out the world, but to see more clearly within. Bring one finger gently to the space between the brows, what many traditions call the third eye, but what in energetic terms is simply your insight center. Tap once, twice, no more than a breath's worth of time. Then open your eyes and blink slowly, not sleepily, but with deliberate calm. In the same way a window adjusts to the morning light, this action tells your mind, sharpen, observe, align. You are not walking into this moment blind. You are tuned to the signal, not the noise. Each of these gestures is small. Taken together, they form an energetic loop that spans the day, beginning in readiness, coursing through heart-centered action, grounding in rooted stillness, and ending in vision. They do not require belief. They require only repetition. Just as water shapes stone not through force but through time, so too does alignment reshape your life, not with drama, but with devotion. These are not rituals to attract miracles. They are habits to clear the way so that miracles already moving towards you can find space to land. Energy design. Layout matters. We often think of energy as something intangible, an invisible undercurrent that moves through space, people, and time. But energy, like water, is shaped by the containers we place it in. The shape of your room, the alignment of your desk, the path of light through a mirror. These aren't just design details, they are energetic instructions, telling your body how to feel, your thoughts how to form, and your opportunities whether to land or leave. Just as a river flows more freely in a clear channel, your vitality, mental, physical, and financial, moves more powerfully through a layout that supports it. One of the most overlooked mistakes people make is positioning themselves with their back to a door. Whether working, reading, or resting, this orientation tells your nervous system, I don't know what's coming. It places you in a subtle state of alertness. Even if you don't consciously register it, your neck muscles tighten, your shoulders may hunch, your breath may shorten. In Feng Shui, this is called the back to the current posture. It means you're not in command of your flow. The result? Scattered focus, shallow decisions, and missed opportunities. You're trying to move forward while energetically watching your back. A simple shift, repositioning your desk or chair so you can see the door, restores not just comfort, but sovereignty. You place yourself in a command position. You welcome awareness, not anxiety. Think of a CEO's office, desk facing the room, not the wall. That's not just aesthetics, that's alignment. And you deserve that same seat in your own life. Mirrors, too, speak to your energetic state. A warped reflection caused by poor angle, cluttered background, or awkward lighting doesn't just distort your image. Over time, it can distort your self-perception. You may begin to doubt your appearance, your posture, or even your confidence without realizing why. The mirror becomes a subtle trickster, amplifying confusion instead of clarity. But used properly, mirrors are one of the most powerful tools in your space. They double light, they widen perspective, they shift stagnant chi. Position a mirror so it reflects something you want more of. Sunlight, plants, space, not your clutter, not your bathroom, not the past. And here's a secret not often spoken. Your fidgeting reveals where your energy leaks. Do you constantly tap your fingers, scratch your neck, tug at your shirt hem? Each repetitive gesture is a sign of energetic static. The body is trying to discharge something it doesn't know how to hold. You can gently rewire that by placing stabilizing objects, small coins, a piece of jade, even a grounding crystal, near those spots. Not as superstition, but as a physical anchor. Your body, just like your home, responds to subtle cues. When you give it a symbol of stillness, it begins to still. In Feng Shui, layout is never random. Every door, every corner, every object is placed with intention. Your body deserves the same grace. Let your spine align like a riverbank guiding flow. Let your seat face the direction of new possibilities. Let your mirror reflect not what you fear, but what you invite. Because when your environment supports your presence begins to reshape your life. There's a quiet truth we often overlook. Before your income rises, before your network expands, before anything in the material world shifts, your body already knows. It speaks in whispers, in the way your shoulders rise when you're unsure, in the way your fingers curl when you're holding back, in the moments you bite your lip before saying what you really mean. These are not random tics. They are energy codes, habits, signals, messages you send out day after day before you ever touch a dollar or make a deal. Energy doesn't wait until the meditation mat to speak. It flows through how you sit when you're alone, how you breathe when you're anxious, how you walk into a room when you're unsure if you belong. In Feng Shui, we say that the outer reflects the inner, but what we often forget is that the inner is built one unconscious habit at a time. Wealth, clarity, lofsim, none of them arrive with fireworks. They arrive through alignment. Not just the kind that happens in rituals or on full moons, but the kind that unfolds at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday when you remember to sit tall instead of slouching, when you pause to unclench your jaw before an important call, when you choose to plant both feet firmly on the floor as you speak your truth. These are not small things. These are everything. Every gesture is a message. Every position, a projection. And when you begin to treat your posture, your gaze, your breath as part of your energy field, not separate from it, you begin to shift. The world doesn't just respond to what you say, it responds to what you hold, how you hold it, and who you are when no one's looking. So tonight or tomorrow morning, I invite you to tune in. Pick one gesture, just one that no longer serves you. The shoulder shrug that hides your worth, the crossed arms that shield your power, the restless tapping that signals doubt. And let it go. Replace it with something new, a conscious breath, an open chest, a calm gaze. Watch what changes, not in the bank, but in the field around you. And then slowly, the bank follows. If this reflection helped you see your body in a new light, I warmly invite you to comment below. What gesture are you ready to release or to claim? Your story, no matter how small, may be the nudge someone else needs. And if you'd like to join a community that values grounded wisdom, practical energy, and the beauty of simple alignment, I welcome you to subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. With your presence, we're on our way to reaching 2,000 thoughtful souls, one clear breath, one steady posture, one realignment at a time. Thank you for being here. Let the energy you carry into your next moment be a conscious one.